Hello, hello, hello. Today is Monday, fun day, and we are back. We're starting the Erudition Network up again after having been away for family emergencies. And then after my father-in-law's homegoing services, we contracted COVID. So we had to deal with that. But let me tell you, God is good, okay? It is October 3rd, and we had contracted COVID about 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, and no one ended up in the ER. Everything was just, a blessing how everything transpired. Everyone was like caught off guard, even though it was like in the midst of the pandemic. I know that Biden said that the pandemic is over, but this occurred during what last month sometime. And it was like it caught us all off guard and no one was ready, even though it's like it's a pandemic, of course you're ready for this. But it was a blessing. We just endured a lot of fatigue, a great deal of fatigue, a lot of coughing. But even though we suffer with pre-existing medical conditions that cause us problems breathing, there was no problems breathing. It was such a blessing because normally we do have problems breathing. So it's like you catch the virus and you could breathe. So it was a blessing that we only really suffered things that were pertaining to the virus as opposed to actually having the virus and our pre-existing medical conditions to belabor or make the ailment more serious than what um, it could have been. So that was such a blessing that I just had to tell you. And to apologize that we have been gone for quite some time now. And we appreciate all the viewers who have endured with us and that you have returned back to watch the show. We do have a lot in store. We have some people who have asked to do the show. So Adroit Living will present more people that will come on and interview, tell you a little bit about themselves, their company, and make some offers to the audience for some discounts. Okay, we're gonna get you guys some discounts. You just say Adroit Living. You saw it on Adroit Living. Can I get a discount? So, and some more people who are service members who will offer their services to be helpful to you as we have before. So, we're going to continue to study the course and see how this evolves um, to help you viewers to connect with some people who may be able to help you as time goes on. So, stay tuned, stay tuned. This is not going to stop us. We're going to see continue and see exactly where this goes. Hi, Sean Anthony. Sean Anthony is doing much better. He too had COVID. Um, hi, Matthew. Hi, Matthew. Matthew also had it, and it was like my poor baby was sleeping a lot. I was so scared because I couldn't do anything because I was like literally sleep for 2 days. I couldn't open my eyes, and it took a lot of prayer, and I was really concerned because I saw the people who had testimonials about how they endured COVID, and some people contracted it more than once, and that was concerning. And a lot of people said, well, if you have pre existing medical conditions, it's going to be extremely bad for you, especially for depending on your age range. Even though I saw some research that showed that some people, you know, they had the virus, but through prayer. That was what I saw was the factor that aided a lot of the people to get through it and have a great testimonial after the fact. Um, Even when a lot of people said that they contracted the virus and they ended up in the hospital in the ER, and the doctors weren't able to successfully help them to get over the virus. And a lot of people said, well, once they gave up on the doctors and they started to pray, they made it through it. Um, and they didn't stop the medicine, of course, but they said that they noticed the effects were more prevalent, more helpful for them after they gave up on, the doctors and the help that the doctors could provide, and because everybody's limited on what it is that they can do, and the virus was like, such a conundrum, such a puzzle, such an enigma. It was like, how do we do anything? How do we solve this? How do we help anybody that's contracted this? So they were doing their best. The medical staffs have been doing their best. The nurses have been awesome because they can never be compensated fully for what they do, and the CNAs, they can never be compensated completely for the work that they put in. And the doctors, oh, they are awesome, and they can never get as much acclaim as you would imagine to really fully compensate them for their labor. But kudos to all of them. I have been watching diligently. I have been researching, and I've seen how some people have had testimonials where the prognosis was extremely grim to the point where it was fatal. But I saw their testimonials, and they said that they prayed their way through it. I'm not saying that everybody that prayed and also included medicine overcame the virus. Some people did succumb to it, but I'm saying the probability that I noticed, and I don't like statistics, as you well know, but the probability of those things that I observed, I saw, and I took a little bit from PAL A, which was the medical side of things, and a little bit from PAL B, which was the spirituality of everything, and how people said they prayed and they looked towards God. And I put both of those two together. And from that, I developed my own method of how to get through it. And I'm just saying it worked. Okay. So I did medicine, and they say things like Robitussin is the cure all, it's the panacea for African Americans, because if you have anything, if you have asthma, if you have a headache, if you have a cold, whatever the cold is, use some tussin. And tussin is going to do it. If you have a learning disability, a belt don't do it, tussin got you. So old school jokes, but to be serious, I did use Robitussin, and I'm just saying that worked. And we had some Tylenol, we had some other medicines, and alternating those medicines um, kept the symptoms extremely mild. Um, but nevertheless, it took it was a bit long, drawn out, but it was not bad. It was, a blessing that we had those things. And my husband, he was sick as all outdoors, but he got up after being like completely asleep for 2 days. And on the third day, he went out and, still sick, and got all the medicine that we needed. But prayer and that medicine really helped. Eddie said prayer works where other things happen before the illness. We did do some things. Yeah, we did some things. And I think not wearing our mask in public, because we were at the home going services. And when you out, you're at these services, and it's like you can't keep the mask on and drink. You got to drink, a libation or a soda, or eat, or, you can't keep the mask on. Matthew said, yeah, Robitussin is really good medicine. Yes, it is. I'm not endorsing it. I'm not saying that you have to get it. I'm saying what worked for us. You don't have to do what worked for us, but I'm just saying. And no, we didn't. We did drink. We drank soda. And he's trying to clear it up. We don't normally. I haven't had an alcohol beverage in, I think before I got married, I haven't had a alcohol beverage. I was in Hawaii, uh, living it up, 21, and I was like, oh man, this is my last bit of freedom. So I'm gonna live it up. I'm gonna, enjoy myself to the fullest. And I had a Long Island iced tea in Hawaii. Okay, it was hot. Hey, that's my mom. She says nothing like praying. Well, praise God, it worked for you guys. Yes, it did. I promise you. I I'm known for giving credit where credit is due and giving honor where honor is due. And I love giving positive testimonials about people. But this one, all the work belongs to God. All the glory belongs to God for what He's done. Okay, Shannon said Robitussin is good medicine, but it takes horrible. Oh my God, we're not going to even get into the taste of it because let me tell you, it tastes like bad breath of someone who's been ill for a long time and has not brushed their teeth. I opened the top, I smelled it, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I got to drink this. But I was so desperate, I had to drink it because I couldn't work like I needed to work. I couldn't conduct the research that I needed to do. I couldn't serve the communities that I needed to serve. And those communities, they can't really afford um, the payment, but it's not about the money for me. Okay, and Matthew says, if you haven't already shared the video, I'm not really sure what that means. Eddie said, you described the taste. I'm sorry I described the taste. I'm just saying, if anybody from Robitussin watching, please fix that. That's just like, wow. But it worked. It was effective, so I can't complain. Matt says, I'm happy I didn't have to go to the hospital. I am so happy because it's like we were all ill. And normally I'm giving my all to everybody and I don't have anything left for myself. And during this time, I couldn't even open my eyes for 2 days. So, like my kids, my husband, my family members, no one has ever had to worry about if I'm going to be there, if I'm going to turn up. Anybody in my circle, they've never had to worry about if I was going to turn up and show out. And during that time, there was nothing I could have done. So I'm so happy that none of us had to show up in the ER because even when Eddie had to go to the hospital, I was there. I'm in the parking lot the entire time in the midst of the pandemic, and nobody else was able to be in the ER with their spouse or with their mate. I was in that parking lot, okay? I'm that's just who I am. That's how I am. And I'm just in the parking lot. I'm present. I'm in the vicinity and I'm praying that, God just do what He do. Just show up, regardless of our sins and our problems and the things, our shortcomings. I'm just praying, God, hear me out. God hears sinners' prayers. Let me tell you, I can tell you, He hears it. Matthew says, I'm happy that my Robitussin didn't taste bad. I didn't mean to taste the Robitussin. I'm just saying that I was able to taste it. But before I tasted it, I smelled it. And that was not a good idea. My sense of smell during the pandemic was during the ailment. It was like heightened. Some people say they couldn't smell anything. I could smell the world. It was like, oh my God, I'm gonna pass out from the smell alone. Yes, times are rough. We have a lot of people going through due to floods and issues. And what we can say about mental health for those still in turmoil is prayer works. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't believe. Well, even if you don't believe, try it. Give it a try. I don't care what your sins are. Give it a try. I don't care what anybody said about you can't do what. God has a way to understand our heart, and He's not judging us. And I don't judge people because I service a community of people who have titles and labels that a lot of people are only now starting to accept. Okay. Teddy says it took us a while to get up to 100% after dealing with that virus. Thank God we made it through. Yes, I agree. But a lot of times, the communities that I service and volunteer for, because they can't afford my services, um, are people from the LGBT community. So I do joke around about that. People from the sign language community, the deaf and hearing, and their family members. And I don't like to brag and I don't like to put that out there. So even when my sisters, Philanda and Karen were on and it was like, well, what do you do? I don't like to say anything about it because I've noticed that a lot of people use those communities like a crutch, the vulnerable communities like a crutch, like a badge of honor to say, look at me, look at me. And that really hurts them. It hurts them in a way where they can't vocalize that you're putting them in a position that they don't want to be in, because a lot of times people don't want those labels. And those labels cause a division that they would like to avoid. So I don't normally say that I that's the community that I service, because it's everybody just wants to be looked at as if they're on an even playing field, whether they're in a lower social class, or whether they stay in a different demographic area, whether regardless of their culture, their gender, whatever it is, everybody just wants to be seen as playing on an equal playing field. And when we point out the differences, that hurts people. So I don't like to look at it and say, "Oh, well, look at me. I'm doing a good thing because I'm giving more than I'm taking." And look at who I'm giving to, the vulnerable community that can't afford me, that can't speak for themselves, and can't this and that. I don't like to do that. I've worked diligently with like DCFS and for that servicing that community when I was in Chicago, and no one knew. And you know, it's like the Bible says, when you look for man for your reward, there's your reward. God, he say, well, all right, you there you go. But when you look to God for your reward, the blessings are so unspeakable. I can't even imagine to where I would begin to tell you. So all I ever say is just keep watching. So when people say things like, "Oh, you're going through and you're not getting the kind of money that you deserve for your time and your services and the things that you do," I just tell them, just keep looking, just keep watching, because God will not be mocked, and He always shows up and shows out in my favor. And like for example, with catching the virus, you know, that wasn't nothing but God, and nobody else could have did what He did. So I don't complain. What did Matthew say? Treat people how you want to be treated, and you know that is what the Bible says as well. And we all, like need to turn back to our roots. And things like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, and treat people the way you want to be treated. Would you want somebody pointing out your differences and say, well, oh, you couldn't afford me, but I did XYZ for you, and throw it in your face? You don't want that. So when I look at TikToks and I see how a lot of these people say, oh, well, this person has autism, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart because I understand why they're conveying that this person has autism, but get them off the camera. Unless they're on the camera doing it for themselves, don't don't do it, because a lot of times I see it as being exploitive of what it is that they're going through and how they go through life. And I understand why a lot of people are doing it, because yeah, people need to be aware. People need to know that yeah, these are problems that people have, and this is what we endure when we're working with these people, when we're trying to help them live, when we're trying to teach them how to be uh, a little more on an average playing field with their peers and those people that's their age group. And it's like, it's hard that that's what we have to resort to in order for everybody in the world to understand that these are real problems, and these things are happening, and there is a serious need for these people to get the help that they need. I don't get TikTok. I understand a lot of people don't like to look at social medias of various sorts, because it is a little hard to swallow those pills. For example, we were watching some YouTube stuff while we were ill and dozing off and wake up and doze off. We were watching this YouTube where they were showing a lot of people who was being exposed for stolen valor. I didn't know. I had no idea that people go out here and they say things like they are military affiliated, or they're service members, retired service members or current service members, and they're lying. I had no idea. They're wearing the uniform and they're putting these outrageous patches on their clothes as if, and it's out of place. It's nowhere near where a military service person, even ROTC members, would know where to place these insignias and patches and things like that. And these people are still of age where they can serve their country and fight for their country. And instead of just having, lying and stealing valor so that they can reap the rewards, like people saying thank you for your service and giving them recognition for being affiliated with the military. And um, they're asking for money and donating. And because there's a loophole, a lot of people, they know of various loopholes that we call cheating. A lot of people call it cheating, but some people see it as the loophole that we're not stealing your money because you're giving it to us. We're just standing here with this bucket, with this uniform, and saying you want to donate, you want to make a donation. But a lot of people don't know you're giving to that person who is stealing the money and taking it for themselves. Now, I have on occasion seen some people out, on the street, and they had the little signs held up and they're asking for money. But at least they're honest. Like this one guy, him and his girl and his dog were out there and they had this sign up, and I posted it on YouTube, on Facebook, because I was like, it made me cry laughing. So I had to circle back and get that man some money because he made me laugh. So a lot of times when I see people who are outside and they're asking for money, I would donate if it's a legitimate situation. For example, if somebody out there and I see, man, it's on my heart to give them some food because it's hot out here. I'm pretty sure they've been out here for a long time. I just give them some food, but it's very rare that I give them money. But just like if I was to go to a comedy club, I'm gonna pay the comedies, at the door, I'm pay the door price, to get in. But what's a dollar or two to somebody that made you laugh and they're on the street holding up their sign or performing in the street? In Chicago, there's a lot of times, people are performing in the streets when the street light comes on, they're performing and everything. Yeah, I'm gonna support them. I'm gonna drop a couple of dollars in there to support them and help encourage them to, use that money towards maybe what uniforms they may have, or getting into a facility where they could be a little bit safer and have the audience to come to them in their establishment so that they could perform in the store. Oh, Matthew says, I noticed that you have new fish in the background. Yes, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about. Thank you, Matthew. Because before we got sick and before we had to go to the homegoing services, I had mentioned that I had something that was coming, a surprise that was coming. And in the background, you can see we're up there in the corner over here. Wait, no, over here. You can see what's called a discus. I posted it on my Facebook page as well. Perhaps we'll try to get that on Adroit Living, where the discus is a freshwater fish. And a lot of people feel like it's a difficult fish to have. Oh, wait, are those just the discus? I hope I'm spelling that right. Yes, you spelled it right. Thank you, Matthew. Yes, those are discus. And they're freshwater fish. And a lot of people say that they're a difficult fish to have because you have to keep the water really clean. But there are different ways to do it. So let's talk about that since Matthew mentioned it. Okay, so with this aquarium, there's a sump system underneath. On the top above my head, you can see a circle in the back, and it leads to an outtake valve where the water that's in the aquarium is pulled out of the aquarium, and it goes through a filter sock, which is nothing more than just really like a sock. It's a really big sock. It's about the length of the tips of your finger to your elbow, and the water goes through that sock tub, and it then flows from out of the sock tub into another tub that has some media in there, and that media again cleans and helps to filter the water. And then from there it goes to another tub, where that tub has a water pump in it, and it pumps the clean water that's now in that tub back up into the aquarium through those big bushes that's hanging from the top of the aquarium. And those big bushes I like to call the marsh. And the marsh helps with aquariums so that one, yeah, it's decorative, but it also helps with the fish. So when the fish have babies and those little tiny fry are trying to sit up in there with the big boys, once they finally, survive, and if it, because a lot of the fish are egg layers, and if they make it through being hatched, because a lot of the other fish, they don't care, they're not going to respect you, they're going to eat your eggs. Okay, so if they make it through the process of hatching from an egg, then they need somewhere to hide, and they'll hide in the marsh, a lot of times at the top of the aquarium or at the bottoms of the aquarium. But because the aquarium is a community aquarium, so you can have like various fish, big fish and little fish do go together. The reason why the discus can sit in the aquarium with fries, other fries, and fries are really, really tiny fish babies. They can sit in the aquarium with them because they have a place to hide. And the discus mouths are so tiny, they can't open their mouths big enough in order to actually put a big fish, even though, for example, there's guppies in there, and guppies are really tiny and they're live bearers. So when they birth their babies, they come out as small fish already. But the discus cannot get them, and neither can the other fish, because these places for them to hide at the top of the aquarium, which is the marsh is about as big as my head, and really spaced out really good so that they can swim around and they can get food. And a lot of times the food will get stuck there just enough for the babies and other smaller fish who can't compete as well with the other fish to get food. So they'll go over there and they'll find food. And that helps the fryer to realize that, look, in order to survive in this aquarium, I'm going to have to run when I see one of the big guys coming. So the guppies that I have in there now, they're second generation from the last pair of guppies that I had in there. And just before they died, they left babies, and the fries are now bigger, and the cycle continues. Guppies, I like guppies because they're live bearers, and they often breed and repopulate your aquarium. So you don't, so you can keep the cost down on keeping, pretty and attractive fish that, just keep you going. And then there's the cardinal tetra. I have the cardinal tetra in there. A lot of people say again that that's a aquarium fish that's difficult to keep, but as long as you have fresh water, you keep clean water, then it'll be all right. And there's other ways that you can keep clean water in the aquarium so that it can also conserve water. So the reason why I use this seamless sump system that I had custom made from custom aquariums um, is because a lot of YouTubers that I've been watching and researching, they strongly suggested this company. And I did my research. I watched a lot of their videos from the manufacturer and how they do what they do. And I saw um, the sump system. I was like, man, that's clever. That's pretty logical. It's not going to overflow. And I have enough of the sump system um, tubs underneath the aquarium so that if the water was to, for whatever reason, um, the pump was to stop and all the water was to flow underneath the aquarium, there's enough overflow room under the aquarium that will catch all the water so it doesn't ruin my floors, it won't flood and drop this entire aquarium down to the next level. So, and that's a blessing because insurance will not cover that. Okay, yeah, I asked, but they're not gonna cover that because that's something that you caused. So anyway, the water pump that's under there is freaking awesome. It's an M1 Vectra, and that, I love technology, computer programming and stuff like that is just a part of my roots. And the M1 Vectra pump is awesome because the customer service, that pump went out. And I was like, oh my God, that pump is freaking expensive. I had purchased the entire system together, and that means that when Custom Aquariums built the system, they built the system according to what I asked. And normally you'll have two pumps so that if one pump goes out, the other pump goes. But a lot of times, what I've noticed with some of the hobbyists, they were complaining about the pumps being cheap and generic and unreliable. So I researched the pump, and I found that the M1 Vectra pump was technology driven, so that you can create a tsunami, you could create different effects, so that it will also aid the fish to feel like they're in more of a natural environment. I haven't had time to play around with it, but I thought that was freaking cool. So I thought maybe I'd go ahead and get it, and whenever I do get the time, I can play around with it, as well as the sound effects that I purchased to make all the whole system, you know, bring the outside inside, because I do kind of like, all that stuff. So I was like, oh, that'll be cool. And I'm always outside. I always feel like I'm out there and enjoying the, outdoors, but I'm indoors. So she said, girl, you need to be paid by the company. Stop giving out the names for free. Okay. So anyway, the reason why I'm telling you is because people have asked and they want to know. So you can definitely get, you know, create your own. So the only reason why I did it that way is because a lot of times you go to an aquarium store, a pet store like PetSmart, Petco, mom and pop shops, and the aquariums aren't as reliable, and they'll bust at the seams. For example, I purchased the aquarium for Eddie from like Wally World, and after a while, when we got here, and we had it for quite some time, like 20 years. No, it was like 17 years. And it bust overnight, and I didn't know. And it caused an electrical fire and everything. And then, by the grace of God, nothing happened. Nothing more than the water was out of the aquarium, and the fire was extinguished, and the electricity was out in that area. Outside of that, it was a blessing. Nothing else happened. But we had to get the fish, hurry up and get the fish out. We woke up that morning and saw everything that had occurred. And I had a throw rug in the floor. I had to just get that up, put that outside. Everything was fine. And we got the water up. It didn't mess up the wood floors. And I got the fish out in enough time so the fish didn't die. Everything was a blessing. Everything was okay. But I learned from that to only trust having your aquariums custom made. So the first aquarium Eddie purchased for me, it was custom made, and the guy guaranteed that there would never be anything that would ever go wrong with that aquarium. That aquarium is about as old as Eddie and our relationship, and we've been together for almost 30 years. So that aquarium has stood the test of time. Military movers, okay, I don't know about you, but military movers are not exactly the most gentle people you would ever hire to move you. But the military hires the military movers to move you. Um, but they have never been successful at breaking that aquarium, cracking the glass or anything. However, Sean Anthony's terrarium, which was glass, they not as successful. But again, that was not a custom made ecosystem. So the damage that transpired with that has a lot to do with the fact that the manufacturer didn't exactly build it to the quality that these aquariums that I'm talking about, the custom made aquariums that Eddie first purchased. And I don't know who that manufacturer was, but he was a man, um, a mom and pop shop, and he was a foreigner in Chicago, and he barely spoke English, but he knew enough to make that sale and to ensure that we understood that there'll never be anything that will happen with that aquarium. And let me tell you, that man was right, and he's freaking awesome. And if he ever watches this and he lets us know who he is, guess what? You will get repeat business. I'm gonna throw a whole lot of business your way, and I'm gonna get me another aquarium. I'm just saying. Eddie may not want me to do that, but I'm definitely going to get another one. Yes, Sean Anthony, rest in peace to your terrarium. It is really, really missed. However, I believe in repurposing things. So just because it can't hold water doesn't mean it can't hold anything. So what we did was we used um, that terrarium system. It's a big glass terrarium system that I've also shared on my Facebook page. I haven't really had time to post all this stuff on Adroit Living and Erudition Network, but I have posted these things throughout the years on my Facebook page where you can see how big it is and how it looks. But what we did with it is we used it for my husband to show all of his accomplishments and um, make it like what are those boxes they call when military service people they have, I forget what the name of the box is, but it's a box that you put on display that has all their accomplishments in there and little knickknacks in there and insignias that they've earned over the years. That's in there, and it's we put lights and everything on it and put that up for display so that no matter what, he always realizes that he did that, and that's cool. Shadow box. Thank you, Sean. Anthony. A shadow box. We put it into a real big glass shadow box display because you always want to show appreciation. And my sons have been blessed to have a real life hero. So two, because we don't want to forget first responders, which are the military spouses, and the actual service member who is going out there giving it all, sacrificing everything to fight for this country. So anyway, I like to repurpose things, and that's what I repurposed that for. Unfortunately, the aquarium was unable to be recycled or repurposed, so I did have to throw that out. It was a 55-gallon aquarium, and I really hated that I had to get rid of it and the stand because the water damages. So anyway, back to the aquarium. So a lot of people don't know what kind of fish can be in the aquarium with a big fish, and they're like, "Oh, you can't put this fish in there with that fish," and a lot of times people don't realize that a lot of the people that's saying that they're experimenting. They don't know yet. It's unclear because the hobby, even though a lot of people have been in the hobby for a very long time, a lot of things are unclear as to what you can and cannot do because fish have a personality. Imagine that, right? For example, the discus, they're extremely intelligent. They're cichlid, and a lot of cichlids have been known to have personalities, have character, and a lot of people have said things like, "Oh, he knows I'm here. He knows it," and a lot of people hand feed their discus. I'm not doing none of that. I'm just saying. Matthew has volunteered that he might like to do that, but you can actually pick up the discus. They grow about as big as your hand. My hands are small, but a man's hands was really big, about 10 inches, I think, maybe, or just under 10 inches. And you could pick these gentle creatures up in your hand and look at them and all of that great stuff and play with them if you want to, I guess. But a lot of people are hand feeding these fish, and the fish will eat right from your hand, and they know when it's time to eat. They know they can see you through that glass. Imagine that. They can actually see you. And when they see you, they're like, "Oh, this is my person. Let me go to my person and eat." Or maybe it's feeding time, or let me go see what my person wants. Um, I know I'm talking about it like it's a dog or a cat, but these fish, they are intelligent and it's a worthwhile adventure. And it's something that, yeah, if you're stuck in the house and you can't go anywhere else, it's a cool thing to have. Um, but you can also have other fish like those small flat fish that's sitting there with swimming with the discus. Those are glow tetra, and those glow tetra are still smaller than the discus. And you can even put angelfish in there, um, because they have small mouths. And the small mouth, even though the fish is big, the tinier the mouth is, the more tinier the fish you can keep in there, because as long as you keep them well fed, everything will be all right because they don't want to kill each other. They would like to thrive as a community. For example, in this aquarium, the fish eat 6 times a day, and the food that falls in the aquarium is maybe three, four, five different types of food that fall in because I mix it. And I do that so because I'm not going to go in there and keep changing the food. I'm not doing all that. I just don't have the time. But I have the Eheim hopper, um, and I put in um, there's a hopper. It's a normal automatic fish feeder, but it also has this tray that sits on top of it where you can put in a great deal of food. So you don't have to go in there every day to put food in, or every 3 days or 4 days. And I was gone for about 3 days. So when I came back, yeah, it was time to put some food in there. And that can, that can get dangerous because, yeah, if the fish run out of food, they may wait 2, 3 weeks before, you know, they might attack each other and start eating one another, but they might not wait. So it's a gamble, and I don't like to gamble. So I try to make sure that I have enough food that they'll all eat, and they'll be able to pick and choose what foods they want, so it's less likely that they'll attack one another. For example, there's worms in there. There's when I say worms, I'm speaking of the uh, dried blood worms that you could purchase at any store. Flake food, again, you could get that from Walmart, Petco, PetSmart, whatever. Different types of flake foods. For example, there's pictures on the canisters of fish food where you can see, oh, I have that fish. Let me get this food because the picture of this fish is in my aquarium. So I'm pretty sure that this is the fish that will like this food. And then there's other fish food that specifically says discus or any other kind of fish that you may have. If you read the label and you see, oh, this fish food is for this particular fish, yeah, I put all that in the hopper. And I just stir it up. It'll stir up by itself as the automatic feeder continues to rotate and drop the food in there. And they can pick and choose whatever food they want. So I don't have to sit there and say, oh, well, on this side of the fish feeder, I have this kind of food. And on this side of the fish feeder, I have this kind of food. And then another day I'll come in and alternate it. I don't have that kind of time. But I love watching the fish, and I want them to survive. So I just do what I can to just, adroit living style, creatively make things happen. And, just figure out what everybody's doing, what works, what doesn't work, and take a little bit from what worked, take a little bit from what didn't work, put those two piles together and do you. So what's working for me is that some people, when they have discus, they say if they're changing 100% of the water every day to 50% of the water every day, and every other day 100% of the water. I'm not doing that. I was gone for 3 days. There was no way that I could have done any of that, maybe more than 3 days. But I'm just saying, 3 days max is like, man, now the fish doesn't have clean water, or no one's rotated the water out and added fresh water in, and the discus are still alive. Discus can be fairly expensive. However, there are some extremely good breeders out there. I forgot the breeder that I got these fish from, who sell discus and specialize in discus, and they're not necessarily trying to profit off basic discus like the ones I have in my aquarium. So, with that breeder, the very next day that he knew that the fish arrived, he sent me an email with his phone number and said, "Call me right away. Tell me how things are going." He cared, and I didn't spend a hundred, two, three, $700 on these basic discus, but he still gave a crap. You know what I'm saying? That kind of customer service is the same customer service I'm talking about with the M1 Vector that made it so worthwhile to get, because when the M1 Vector went out, I called the company. The company said, "Got you. We're gonna send you another one." After they verified that it was a legitimate sale and whatnot, it was like, "I got you." They sent another M1 Vector out with all, and it was not the same one that I had. There was a manufacturer malfunction with it, where they had to upgrade it to the most current M1 Vectra that is more efficient. And it's the only pump I have in there. So they had to hurry up. And they did. And they were really considerate to my problem. Um, and just like with the discus owner, he was extremely considerate to the fact that he wants you to be successful in being able to be a discus collector. I'm not really saying that I'm interested in collecting a bunch of discus, uh, but I just wanted to test it out and see. But I didn't want to break the bank trying to see. So these discus in here, um, they were very inexpensive. I didn't pay $100 for it, and you can go out there and search and research. And there was a live arrive guarantee on the fish, and it's been freaking awesome. I am not changing the water every day. I have not changed the water since I purchased them and put them in there because I couldn't. You know, the problems that happened. I was gone for the homegoing services. Then I caught COVID and I couldn't do anything at all, nothing. And there was nothing I could have done to do anything. Now, um, I'm not pushing it, but yeah, it's because the water is already clean. The filtration system is overly filtered. There's a couple of sponge filters in there that's supposed to filter about 200 gallons of water each. And there's about, I want to say, four of them in there to include the media and the sock. So the water is overly filtered, but it still don't get dirty. And for like 2 weeks, I haven't been able to do anything, but the water evaporates because I have a glass lid at the top, and some of the water does evaporate. And I'll put water in, fresh water in at the top, and let play around with them when it's a little bit. Pouring the water in there, and they really love that, and they love the fresh water that I add in there. But as far as taking any water out of there and trying to clean it and doing any of that maintenance, I've been unable to do that because I was sick. And as you can see behind me, they're doing wonderful. And a lot of people, they cry. They go on vacation, they come back and they are crying major tears because, yes, you don't never want to see an intelligent creature die. And those discus are very intelligent and wonderful while you have great filters. Yeah, and it was a blessing. And the only way that I was able to see those filters was because I saw the YouTubers who they don't get paid for what they do. Um, what the compensation that they have is you looking at YouTube, you're commenting, you're liking, and maybe even subscribing, and telling other people about them. And that's how that works. So it's basically each one helping one, and they paying it forward, I guess, kind of speak. Oh, thank you. And I just threw this together. I'm still trying to, get back on my feet and, you know, comb my hair and all that sort of thing. We poofy today. We poofy, but it's all right. I'm just happy that I'm okay. And I want to make sure we get the Adroit Living and Erudition Network back online. And get back to the people. So I did mention that before we left that I had a surprise. Adroit Living had a surprise, and that was the surprise, the discus. And I wanted you guys to see it, but I didn't really get a chance to. And I was feeling so bad and guilty. I'm like, oh, and I didn't know what would happen because sometimes you purchase fish and for whatever reason, the fish doesn't make it. And I was like, oh, I'm new to this. I'm not really sure if I can do it. I don't want anything to go wrong. And what if they all die before I'm able to get online and even show them? That was a waste of time, effort, and money. But everything turned out all right. And a lot of people who are discus owners, they're trying to get more people to understand that owning discus isn't as hard as you may think. And now, because I've tried this out, I'm like, man, it's not even as difficult as the people who said it. It's not difficult. And that what they do, it's even less difficult than that. Because still, again, they were changing their water very often. And I'm like, we're on a water restriction. out here. There's a drought going on in the world. There's a flash flood going on in the world. There's a lot going on in the world with natural disasters and things like that, where a lot of people have to conserve water. And we are part of that, where we have to conserve the water. We're not really watering the grass like that. So how can I justify changing the water on my fish tank? Every day, every other day, every 3 days. I'm not. It is being filtered very well. I changed the sock um, as soon as we were able to feel better, feel well enough to be able to change the sock. We pulled that sock out of there, and the water continues to be crystal clear. We put fresh water in due to the evaporation, and the water in the aquarium never goes down, but the water in the sump system, you can see that the water level has decreased, and you just, fill the water up until the water level in the sump shows that there's an adequate level of water in the sump, so that the system will continue to revolve and rotate that water. But it's not as difficult. And I definitely encourage anybody out there, if you can keep cardinal fish, cardinal tetra, um, then I would strongly suggest you add in a discus or two, and maybe pay about $40 per fish to get you one. Sometimes it's 30, sometimes you may catch it on a sale. And I love, love, love sales. Okay. I love coupons, I love discounts, and I just wanted to try it and see what would happen. And like a cardinal tetra is like $4 each. You might be able to catch it on sale for cheaper than that. And then in this aquarium, because the fish food goes in so often, but there's a lot of fish in there, and you have to have a proper community. For example, there's snails in there, neurite snails, and they are power horses to help with algae and keep algae under control. Then there's whiptail catfish in there, also algae eaters and bottom feeders. So when any food hits the floor of the aquarium, they eat it up and they keep it clean. And then there's cory catfish that are also bottom feeders, who are in there, and they are quickly eating up all the food that falls to the aquarium floor. And he says, I may be able to put a camera closer to the tank so some folks can see it closer. We'll test it. Okay, so there you have that. We'll test that out sometime, and show you as I'm talking about it, I guess, on one of these episodes. But I also put pictures of, and try to show pictures on the website so you can see it. Or again, you can always Google, and come back to this episode and freeze it, pause it, and look at them as I'm talking about it. But the cory catfish, they only get to about 3 inches, and they will keep that aquarium floor clean. They are power horses, and they do a great job. They can survive with cichlids of various sorts, from mild to aggressive, without getting eaten. No matter how big the fish is and how big the fish mouth gets, they are very good with being able to stay in the aquarium. And I also have some whisker shrimp. Oh, I got to talk about the whisker shrimp. Okay, so you know how you have glass shrimp, ghost shrimp? They're transparent, they're small, and they're pretty cool with helping with algae, keeping algae clean. They'll even eat decaying fish, decaying plants, and they eat algae as well, but they help keep the aquarium clean. However, it's difficult to keep them because they're fairly delicate. However, the whisker shrimp, it looks just like the ghost shrimp, only they're bigger, and they have these really large whiskers that's the length of their entire body. And it's like these fillers, these whiskers, they're fillers. And I've seen the whisker shrimp face off with an angel fish that was, trying to be aggressive because she was laying eggs. And that whisker shrimp held his own. He's a tiny little shrimp that looks just like the glass ghost shrimp, but he's far more aggressive. And those things are freaking awesome. You cannot, if you have an aquarium that you're like, man, I want some shrimp, but I don't, they keep dying, get those, because those are worthwhile. They're maybe about $4 again. So are the neurite snails. But some places have it on sale, and they're like, you can get about a couple of them for like $12. You can get like 12 or so for about $12 or $6. I forget. It's been a while, but anyway, some of them are like $1.99 each. That's what it comes around about too. But some people like to sell it for, again, $4, because people are desperate and they know the quality of work that the Norite still provides. And again, even with whisker shrimp, some people like to increase the price on it because they know that that's a sought after aquarium edition. But again, shop around, because there are some people who give fair prices. Okay. Just like with the discus, a lot of people like to have a crazy price for them because they're trying to make an entire living off of selling just that fish. And it's like, wow, give me a break. I'm just trying to enjoy the fish. So anyway, the cardinal tetra in there. Is there another bottom feeder that I have? I'm not sure. I can't remember. But there's several different types of bottom feeders in there. Um, then there's the number of them, the quantity, the whiptail catfish. They bred. They killed whatever they didn't want in there, and then they bred. Even though it's like 7 feet from one end to the other long, they still wanted all that real estate for their family. So they killed off any other whiptail catfish that I put in there so that they could breed. And those whiptail catfish bred, and oh my God, it's so many in there, I can't even count them. Um, what did Eddie say? Risk of shrimp. I thought this was a PG session. Okay. I don't know what that means, but okay. I don't think, yeah, I didn't talk about them breeding. The shrimp, I don't talk about how they breed, but it's fascinating. You can watch that. That's pretty cool. Yes, I really do love my fish. It gives me peace of mind. I mentioned that before. Watching the fish, um, you know, when I had one whisker shrimp at the top of the pandemic, and I was looking for someone to have a reasonable price, and I finally found someone that had a reasonable price, and I went and purchased um, a group, a school of them, and they scared off the whisker shrimp that I had in there. So that shrimp jumped out of the water, and I didn't know he was on the glass at the top, and that's where I found him. And he could have went back in there, but he decided not to. He decided it was over, so he didn't go back into the aquarium. Even with the Norite snails, um, they can climb out of there, but they can also find their way back in there if that's what they want. So I keep water the the water has a canopy so that it's a barrier. So if any fish were to jump out, the canopy will like kind of create a barrier so it bounce off of there and bounce right back into the aquarium. But there's some spaces where there is an opening. So if they bounce out of there and they just so happen to go through that hoop, guess what? You're not coming back because it's kind of high. It sits up waist high, so you don't have to bend over in order to see, the fish, because that can be rather uncomfortable. It's a mechanism to distress. Yes, and that's what I talk about a lot with the show. Methods that you can use to help manage your stress. And the reason why you want to manage your stress is because you're your first responder when it comes to your stress. You don't want to be too stressed out all the time because stress is a silent killer. Thank you, Ella Hattie Herbert. Well, she was one of the people that told me I needed to find at New Nation Ministries, where Prophet Dr. Hattie B. Jones, the Honorable Prophet Hattie Dr. B. Jones, was the pastor and founder. She had administrative Elder Hattie Herbert, who was her administrator, and she was telling me, and she worked a lot with the youth, and she said, you have to find a way to relieve your stress that doesn't include you shopping all the time, spending a lot of money, and going out. And I had a friend from college. I was going to UIC dorms downtown Chicago, and my friend helped me with that and started me into the aquarium hobby. And here we are now. A fish died recently. It was, oh, I just hate it when the fish die. I really do. But let's get to these comments. We'll tell, yeah, the plecos. The plecos are also bottom feeders, and they suck onto the glass, and it looks like they kind of like stuck there, and they'll just keep wiping across the glass. They also are known as a catfish. Well, they will also eat decaying food, fish, and sometimes decaying plants. But they definitely keep that aquarium floor extremely clean, which is very good to have. Thank you, Matthew, for reminding me that I had that in there. Folks need something to keep stress down, and I guess that fish can be. Yeah, and sometimes I'm just gonna tell you, having an aquarium can definitely help people mind your own business because you are in your house minding your own business, tending to your fish. So I highly recommend, you know, that because yeah, it does help you, keep your nose in your own house. We'll tell. Oh, that was Teddy. Yeah, so my time is up. It's been an hour, but there are many fish in there. And one thing that you have to understand is when you have an aquarium, you want to make sure that you have a proper balance of custodial workers and showfish. So the showfish, they're just there to be pretty. They're just in there to be pretty. But you still have to have your workers because they are invaluable to keeping your aquarium water clean, keeping your plants healthy and clean, and keeping your fish healthy and clean. And it doesn't matter how many filters you have on there. If you don't have proper workers to help keep your aquarium clean, it's not going to work out too well for you. So always have the custodial workers. And they're like the one percenters in the world, and they're invaluable for aquarium life to be properly maintained. I don't know how often I clean. I don't go inside the aquarium and clean it. I had this aquarium since 2018, and I may have cleaned it 3 times, actually physically going in there and cleaning it, because the aquarium, after the aquarium was established and I had enough fish in there that would keep the glass clean, um, maybe that first year, and I cleaned it once every 6 months during that time. And since then, I've maybe since 3 times. So three plus the two, 5 times that I've actually had to go in there and actually clean it. So I don't really go inside the aquarium to clean it. I don't like touching the fish. I like the fish, but I'm not trying to touch them jokers. And they like to come up to your hand, and I'm not down with that. So yeah, the most of the cleaning that happens is happening under the aquarium, where I'll take the sock out, where I take the media out, rinse that with some water, um, and that's it. Rinse it with some water, just fresh, clean water. Rinse it, put it back in there, um, and change out the media balls, the bio balls, but very rarely because you just rinse it, and because it's being filtered so well, it's maybe once a year, maybe twice a year, all depending on how dirty the sock gets, and if you don't catch the sock being dirty fast enough. The sock I might change um, once every, maybe, I don't know, when I did before the discus, I changed it maybe twice a year. Now that I have the discus, this is my second time changing the sock, um, in I think 3 months. No, I don't really know. Don't give me the line. I don't know how long it's been in there because, like I said, it's a lot been going on. I have to calculate it later, and I'll get back to you. But that sock had not been changed before I put the discus in there, so it had maybe, I want to say 3 months, and then most recently I just changed it. So I think it's been 3 months since I changed the sock, but we'll get back to that. But I don't really. There's no maintenance. I'm just looking at the fish, making sure I get the plants that's deteriorated and get that off of there so it doesn't clog the system, so that the water doesn't overflow over it, and make sure everything can keep on flowing steady. But outside of that, I'm just looking at the fish, making sure they got food. That's it. So is definitely possible to have these fish without having all the work. But you just got to put in, just a little time. Good return show. Thank you. Thank you. What my mother say? Ha ha ha. Say that. I know a lot of people think it's a lot of maintenance and it's a lot of water. And I have a trick for you so you don't have to carry buckets back and forth and all that sort of thing, and it still gets your water clean. But we'll come back and talk about that at a later time. And we also have some other things that we want to get back into. But I just wanted to tell you, this was the big surprise that I had before we all had to, go and do other things. It was the discus. I don't know if you can see it now, but they're back there. They change colors according to their mood. Sometimes they come to the front of the aquarium and they're nice light and showing all their colors. And sometimes they go way in the back because it turned dark because they don't want to be seen because they're sneaking up on somebody. But anyway, it's really cool to watch. And I guess we'll get back to see what other kind of fish are in there later. Great to see you. I know. I wish that maybe one time, Mama, you can come on here and you can talk about what you do. My mother is an evangelist, and maybe she can come on and talk about what she does and give everybody an understanding and invite them out to New Nation Ministries because she's still in Chicago and she still attends New Nation Ministries, which is my church home. I don't have another church home. I don't really go anywhere else, but that's that. And we'll get back. And there's since my pastor died, there's a new pastor there, and I've been acquainted with that pastor for a very long time. He has a really good heart. Pastor Rodney has a really good heart, and his wife LaWanda, very good-hearted people. But again, for another time. So keep watching, stay tuned, and remember, mental health is physical wealth. See you next show.